Thanks. I just want to we were talking in the college office, and we thought it'd be a good idea just to kind of share some of our thoughts about the different roles that we'll all play in this process, just to sort of help us sort of get started and sort of what we'll be doing over the next sort of several months to a year. And I think, most important, I think that just sort of points of emphasis to take away from this evening, but also this weekend, and probably the two most important things is that this really is a collaborative effort. That this is something that we'll be working with you, with your sons on a regular basis, and that we're sort of all involved to an extent, but in different ways. And that the more we can all communicate together, it just makes that process much easier. So it definitely is it's sort of a group effort, it's a team effort, and one that we, it's a great part of the job, to be honest. It's a really reassuring and reinforcing part of the job. The second thing, probably the most important thing, is that ultimately this needs to be driven by the boys, they're the ones who will be doing the research, and when it's all said and done, they're going to be the ones going to school and spending the next 4 years or 6 or 7 years, depending on how long we need, at a college. So it's going to be their new home, not ours. And sometimes that can be a challenge. I'll be honest, as a college, as an advisor, I went to a school this summer in Tacoma, Washington, and I fell in love with it. And I was trying to get every single one of my kids to apply. I was like, you have to go. It's a perfect place for me. But, and I think that's kind of a hard part for all of us. So, to emphasize or reiterate, I think in terms of the role that you guys will be playing over the next year or so, is just positive reinforcement, encouragement. That's the best thing, in terms of that. And the second thing in terms of working with us is just help keep the boys on track. If you can get to schools over spring break, please go see them. It doesn't have to be their top choices. Just get on the campuses. Campus visits this summer will be critical because obviously with 6 days of classes and more deadlines that come earlier, missing school time just makes it a bigger challenge, I think. So as many schools as we can see in the summertime, that's huge. And then encourage your sons to kind of follow up with schools, send thank you notes, things like that. And then lastly, I think just in terms of the summer, besides sort of making sure that they're signed up for SATs, if it's a competitive college, making sure that they're taking SAT subject tests potentially. But this summer, encourage them to get a job. Make sure they're working, doing community service that's meaningful, doing something more than just hanging out. And I think that's important. And as Terry said, set parameters early, because that'll be huge. For the boys, most of this process will be driven by them, and we've actually, most of your sons, we've already met with to introduce them to the software that we use. We've had, I would guess, 3/4 of the kids in the last 2 weeks. We'll have the rest of them in next week, and we'll start sitting down on a somewhat regular basis after a long weekend. And again, a lot of them, it's just emphasizing that they're going to take ownership of the process. And the more they do early and the more they stay on track, in the long run, it's the less stress it's going to be in the process. It's not nearly as daunting of a task if you start early. And I think that's every year we see it with the boys who start early, and it's great. And we also see it on the negative side, the ones who don't start early, and it can become a little overwhelming. And our jobs, all of us, is to kind of make sure that doesn't happen. In terms of what your boys will be doing this spring, just a couple basic things. A lot of it when we start to meet is just going to be researching colleges using Naviance, starting to build sort of an early college list. And this could be 30, 40 schools if they want, but just kind of checking out some places, getting some ideas of programs they may want to be involved with. Seeing some campuses if they can, just starting to get sort of an initial picture, and then starting to do a research on those particular schools to see if it's a place that they may want to pursue. So we'll be doing that this spring. They should certainly talk to teachers, and we're going to ask them to speak with faculty members about college recommendations before they leave. It's great, as a teacher, it's also a big help, I think, for a faculty member to know you have a lot, recs coming. Again, with earlier deadlines, it can be a lot of work if you have 20 kids you need to write for that are all due November 1. So if they have a heads up, it helps them kind of really think about and reflect on the student and how they can best support them in a recommendation. And then just a couple other things. If a boy has a special interest, whether he's an artist, a musician, an athlete, they should be speaking with their instructors or their coaches and talking about realistic sort of goals to set and how to best pursue them. Do they want to put a portfolio together? Should they be contacting coaches, and at what level? Should be, we've already started to talk to them a little bit about registering for the clearinghouse. Those types of conversations will happen this spring. And again, that will make life a lot easier sort of going into the summer. And then this summer when we get there, interview. And I guess probably the more important thing is really show appropriate interest in schools. If it's a place they like, let them know you like it without sort of stalking them. Let them know that it's somewhere that they enjoy and it makes a world of difference. Just a simple thank you letter goes a long way. Handwritten probably. So I think that's just some of the basics. With us, just to be quick, our job, I think, as advisors, it's really for us. Our job is to help present the best possible profile we can. Help your sons present themselves in the best way that they can. So again, we're going to provide insight and advice on colleges. We may recommend schools that they've never heard of that maybe they may be good fits. We'll give them feedback on their lists, and this sometimes can be tough. They can sometimes be tough conversations. If we need to help set more realistic goals. It's not because we don't like students, but not everyone can go to every school. And sometimes that can be a little difficult, but it's really, conversations are better had now than later. We're going to obviously provide plenty of research, support in terms of the research process and helping them use the software. If they want to do some SAT prep on the software, which is available, helping them kind of navigate the Naviance system, because it's really an incredible resource. And there's so much to it. It helps to have someone kind of, here's what you can do. And then we'll send, in the next fall, we'll be responsible for sending recommendations, writing a college profile for your son, sending that, secondary school reports, the school profile, getting that information out. SAT scores will be sent by the family, by your sons. And I guess the last thing is just the more we see of your sons this spring, the better. It's a win-win for everyone. I think as we talk about, as we decide who's going to work with who, this is really kind of an initial breaking up. It doesn't mean changes can't be made, but oftentimes, it helps if we know the boys. I've been lucky this year where I knew almost all the kids that I worked with this past year before sitting down to talk college. But that's not always the case. So the more time we can spend with them is always a good thing.